So at some point, there's still some memorizing. However, we need to understand that if you memorize one formula for one thing and then another formula for another thing, another method for another thing, you probably have a lot to remember. And at the end of the day, not only you got information overload, you cannot be applying it properly.
Welcome, guys, to the brand new episode of the Parent Teacher Podcast. This is our second episode, right?
Yep, that's it.
Yes, it's our second episode. So, for those who are new here, the Parent Teacher Podcast, where Gary Ang here, who is a teacher for the past 20 years and also the founder of NumberSkill Learning Centre, and most importantly, also a parent, right? So, this podcast, I think, is something that is a bit more chill and something for us to discuss, especially what's going on in the current education landscape in Singapore and how parents can actually navigate through these waters, right?
Yep, that's right.
All right. Okay. So for this episode, right, Gary, so we are going to talk about the outlook for 2025, more specifically the math, right? Secondary school math. And I know right now it's already in the second sem, right? So
Second term, that's right.
the second term, and I would say maybe not too late to still go through. I think we've been busy. So how are things going on your side, Gary? How was the student results recently?
I mean, the first WA result was just recently released back. So, of course, we got really good ones. Like, there are some of them who scored full marks. Quite a lot of them got A's, and which is quite within our expectations. So that is something, of course, we hope for as well. But, of course, there will also be a few of them who needs a bit more time to get used to the new year's workload.
Of course, for sure. Yeah, so we're going to do this podcast a little bit differently because we do have quite a number of questions that parents actually ask us. A bit like frequently asked questions, right?
Yes.
So hopefully our answers are able to benefit a lot of parents out there as well. Okay,
Yes.
so let's get started. So the first question for you, Gary, is actually what are students actually struggling the most in 2025 so far?
Struggling in 2025 so far. If you're talking about topic specific, then there'll be different topics for different level. So if you're talking about lower sec, then the usual headache for their math is algebra. So some of the secondary one students may not even have hit algebra yet. So they are learning pretty simple stuff, which is not a bad thing because you want to start off simple. You don't want to kill the interest straight away on the first week of school. So but some of them haven't hit algebra, but that will be one of the most challenging for the sec 1. And for some people, this challenge will go all the way to sec 2. Because sec 2, there will also be a whole load of algebra, new set of formula to remember. They call it identities as well. So things to remember, rules to follow. And if your sec 1 foundation is bad, your sec 2 is going to get quite nightmare. So it will be a continuation. So if you're asking about lower sec students, then yes, algebra will be one of the biggest headache for them, and especially for sec 2 people, if a sec 1 is not well done, then this is when in sec 2, when they started, they're going to relieve their nightmare number 1, number 2, the nightmare become longer and bigger. Yeah, so that would be the lower sec. Now we're talking about sec 3. Yeah, sec 3 is even more interesting because moving from sec 2 to sec 3, the sudden increase in the workload of math content that they have to handle and grapple with is a lot. And if you're talking about A math and E math combined, or whether you're an IP school, which they don't distinguish it that way, but it's the same content, it will come in as like an avalanche, and they will probably get buried very quickly if they don't catch up. And worse is again, if their sec 2 foundation is not so strong, and then when they come to sec 3, they start learning things about complete the square. They don't even know how to expand the square in the first place. Then that is when they start to hit a wall, and this wall becomes very difficult to scale over. So we talk about sec 3 is a major struggle for many students because the workload itself is a shock. So despite their best effort, sometimes they won't do so well so soon. Part of the reason is the workload. Like I said, number 2 is also the experience that they have, because they are just sec 3, so they don't have the kind of a lot of experience doing the kind of tougher questions yet. So hopefully as the year goes along, they revise more on their own, they do more assessment work. That's when they actually gain the experience and therefore the confidence in doing. So sec 3 is a big challenge. Now then we move on to to Sec 4. Now, Sec 4 is a different challenge because this one is quite wide-ranging. So we're talking about O-level goers, O-level students that are going for O-level end of the year. So some of the schools are very fast, so much so that when we talk about the A-math syllabus, they are at the last few chapters already. There are schools like that, we only finished with term 1, so they're already almost finishing. But some schools are pretty laid back in the sense that they haven't or just started on differentiation, for example. So you can see this kind of wide spectrum. Of course, there's good thing and there's bad thing. So if it goes slow, it may help the student in the beginning, but the teacher will rush like mad at the end of the year, because they have to complete everything by National Day period because they have to prepare for the prelims exam. And that's their first major exam in like the whole year. So it'll be very challenging for the students at the back. Now, students who are dealing with all the workload in front, then they'll feel that it is so difficult in the front that in fact the WA will have a lot more topics tested than other people and they won't do well because by the sheer amount of volume. So that will be we're talking about this cohort of Sec 4 people, and we're not even talking about IP students because IP students deal with it slightly differently because they don't have like A-math, E-math separation, they combine together, and it's a more smooth flowing sometimes. So it is a wide range of questions, but if you're talking about specifically 2025, it's even more interesting year this year because our Chinese New Year is so early, if you can recall. So they started school after their good holiday in December. They started school. They go back to school, get to know their new friends and new teachers, and for all you know, hey, Chinese New Year already, then we have a long break of Chinese New Year. Then after that, we come back to school. Then there's a short month called February. So February is a very short month, and of course, they start learning proper stuff because sometimes before Chinese New Year, the teachers also don't push too hard. I mean, after all, they just get to know each other, you see, so they don't teach too much. But then February comes, and then March holiday is probably only a couple of weeks ago. So that's end of February is like what we're talking about WA. Some schools are quite early WA. So that's when they start to get shocked, like, they got their first test, and some of them won't do so well. But then again, depend on the topic that the teacher is covering and then the number of things that are being tested for them. So 2025 is a pretty strange year, if you ask me. I mean, not so easy to navigate because of the first term is being interjected by our early Chinese New Year, and then of course everything gets a little bit the time, the frame of mind that the kids have, it doesn't work very well for some of them.
I think this year is especially special because it kind of gives a feeling that after the holiday, straight away jump into WA.
And then it's like they went to school for a few weeks, then holiday again. They never really get out of the holiday mood.
The mood not there.
Then after that, the February, the workload come, it's still honeymoon. But the end of February, that's when they get the WA. So it is a bit challenging this year, we look at that. But then again, we cannot control this kind of holiday timing.
It's a bit more intense, more intense.
Correct.
Okay, so maybe the next question from my parent is that why is the first half of the year critical for students?
Okay. Actually, every half of the year is always critical. The students have to have a sense of purpose and a sense of being responsible for their own work, no matter which half we're talking about. But we're talking about first half is critical. Usually, we will say that just kids being kids, if they actually put in the effort and their result for the first half, like first WA, didn't do so well, then the second WA still didn't do so well. You can imagine the kind of disappointment that in them, like no matter what I do, it doesn't quite work out. It's just math, So it doesn't inspire them to work harder for the second half of the year, and therefore they will feel that it's a downward spiral. And for some students, it becomes harder for them to get out of it. So if you're asking me psychologically, yes, the first half of the year will be a fantastic time for them to build on their confidence. And usually, I think it's related, but then students who start to do well will continue to do well. So because they feel good, they will like it, they will continue to work hard on it on the second half of the year. So when they start to do well, they will continue to do well. So if you ask me on that note alone, is it more important half? Yes, definitely.
So am I right to say that it's more of like foundation building, like confidence building?
Yes, confidence building, because like I say, everybody will start afresh, and then the new year, everybody they make their new year resolution, they still remember, for the first half of the year, they maybe can still remember, I'm supposed to but if the result didn't quite come in line in sync with what their effort puts in, then you can imagine the second half will be quite put off for them.
I think this is especially more important for secondary one. I mean, jumping from P6 to Sec 1 and then also Sec 3, right?
Yes, yes. To be honest with you, I would say every level it is important. It is, but of course, you're saying that for Sec 1 and Sec 3, their transition is a lot more different.
Yeah.
A lot more different, yes. Then definitely it will be a great help if they can start on the right footing.
For sure, yeah.
Mm.
I think, okay, we'll go on to the next question. Basically, it's why are traditional learning methods like memorizing formula failing students in 2025?
Okay. Now, memorizing formula can only get you that far. Now, don't get me wrong. There are still things we need to memorize. So, I mean, of course, we try to make them understand. So recently, I mean, I'll just explain to my students as well. Like, we try to understand, all right? But eventually, there are some parts you still need to memorize. Like your timetable, like 3 times 5. You have to know it's 15. How do you know it's 15? Most people memorize, and which is good because you need that quick feeling. You cannot be doing a 3 times 5 and then be thinking about, okay, hold on, why is 3 times 5 15? Oh, because I got 3 groups of 5, and you draw up. The understanding is over, you see. So at some point, there's still some memorizing. However, we need to understand that if you memorize one formula for one thing, and then another formula for another thing, another method for another thing, you probably have a lot to remember. And at the end of the day, not only you got information overload, you cannot be applying it properly. And at higher level, this will happen. At higher level, because you accumulate a lot of all the things that you so-called memorize. Oh, I have a formula to do this, I have a formula to do that. And then you don't fully see how things are linked up. So if you ask me on that, yes, then that kind of approach does not serve the students super well in this day and age, to be honest, right? You need to first understand how this, I mean, try the best as we can to make you understand how this formula works, how do you apply it, and then you have to practice using it and see how it links together with other types of questions. Yeah, so just merely memorizing formula is, I mean, it's no harm, but it's not going to be the that's all, that's all you have to do. Oh, that's the magic bullet. Yeah, it's not going to be the magic bullet in this day and age anymore for just memorizing formula. Yeah.
So, like you said, that memorizing is something that, I mean, in the past maybe it's okay. Right now, I believe MOE is also going towards more of a critical thinking question, real life applications. I would say, in the at least in the upper sec level, right?
Yes,
So
yes, definitely.
what are you doing to combat that?
Okay. Now you see, there has been this shift towards this thing called the real life application. And we can see that in upper sec, like you say, O level, E math, A math, even in JC, H2 math, we see that. Now what that kind of question is testing the student on is not by rote learning anymore, because you cannot be practicing that kind of question because it doesn't appear anywhere else. It's really thinking on the spot, thinking on feet. And if you cannot think on the feet, you are the kind that, I must know this formula to do this, and then I'm quite sorry that this will be your biggest problem in the exam paper. Yeah, because let me give you a quick example. I remember one year there was one question that goes a bit like this. It was a very lengthy question, very long kind of wordy question, like almost like a comprehension. So it tells you a story about two friends, Tom and Jerry. I mean, I'm just making names up here, but Tom and Jerry go on a road trip, and the petrol costs so much per liter, and then they give you, not just give you one grade of petrol, they give you like 3 different grades of petrol cost per liter, and then the car uses a certain liter of petrol per kilometer, and on a highway the consumption rate is this, on a normal road the consumption rate is that. So then Tom and Jerry went on a road trip for this particular journey, of which 30% is highway, 70% is this, and then at the end of the day, Tom wanted to pay Jerry some money to compensate for the car ride. How much should he pay? This kind of question, what chapter do you classify this? There is not a single chapter that help you do this. There is not a single formula to help you do this. You have to use your math, math aura, like you have to use your math thinking. I mean, all the things that you ever learned help you with this. Come on, you got to think of it. There's percentage, the rate of change, there's a rate and proportion, and of course there's a bit of common sense as well. So and to make things worse, sometimes the question is quite ambiguous. Read. You're probably going to read 2 times. Yeah. So there are, I mean, these are the kind of questions that we cannot train our student completely to like 100% prepare for it. And we're just talking about E-math. We'll talk about A-math, their A-math challenge. We talk about JC math, their JC math challenge. And almost every year now, in A level, they'll come out with one theorem theorem or one law that nobody ever heard of. Sometimes, including myself. I mean, I study quite a lot of math. I tell my students, I study quite a lot of math, in my life, but I never come across this myself. But that's the way that they come up with the question. But of course, they will describe to you what this is about, and you really have to think on your feet based on everything they've learned. It's not something out of syllabus. I mean, that you can't say that it's in syllabus anymore. No one chapter teach you to do things like that. So yes, this kind of real life application is here to stay, and I think it's in the right direction because you do want to filter out students who really understand the math behind, and you really want to filter those students out who really can think mathematically, and then you award them the A that they deserve. You don't want to award A1s like, because you can answer 80% of the question properly, like what you're supposed to do, like, the TYS, I can do back to back, everything correct. And this, yes, they do deserve the A1 because they can do their math, but they may not be good in their math at all.
Okay. So I think it's a good segue into the next question. Be like, how does real understanding reduce exam stress anxiety?
Okay. Now, exam stress anxiety, exam stress and exam anxiety cannot be fully reduced. For some people, they are more anxious. Some people less anxious lah. But if you ask me, how do we make them more prepared for your exam? Of course, this kind of real life application question, like I said earlier on, we cannot predict what will come out because the story can be so wide ranging. How are we going to come out with any prediction? So nobody can predict. Nobody know. But the only way we can help them, number one, how I help my students build out their foundation strong. Of course, they must know concepts, very simple concepts like rate and proportion, what rate, what goes where, what. And then we talk about just now the example about petrol consumption, speed, time, that kind of thing. So basic concepts like this percentage, right? A bit of common sense, that kind of story. So that kind of mathematical foundation we build on. But then if you only have the math concepts, you can do your math very well. But I throw you a story, you get completely lost inside, then you are equally dead, right? So then the other thing is the broadening of their horizon. So we go deep. We also must go wide nowadays. So we must show them different types of questions, like so that make them off balance a bit. Because I mean, there are standard questions that we can hope for, and usually it does happen. But it's just like recently in my Sec 4 class, right? So we talk about doing maximum minimum problem, and then they were doing this question talks about maximum gradient. So everybody was like, oh, it's a maximum minimum problem. The first thing they do, they differentiate, and then they equate to 0, and then they do. So when I give them the question, I let them do. Everybody do it, and then we just have a quick check. Oh, a lot of people will get it wrong, and it's not their fault. And I told them, look, this is an actual O-level question. So you see, despite you being good, they are really good. They can differentiate well, they can do their things well, but they are not going to survive very well because it's a tricky question. So the other way we can prepare the students is, of course, by broadening their horizon. Show them different types of questions, even some puzzle questions, like when we talk about permutation and combination. Of course, some people just memorize, like, oh, I got 4 letters, I want to rearrange this power 4 factorial. And then ask them why they don't understand. So when starting a puzzle question come out, like you can go how many ways from left to right and that kind of thing, they get completely lost one because it's not the typical kind of question that they can do. But when you show them, and when I show them, and when I explain to them, look, no matter how, you are just going to have the number of up steps and number of right steps. That's always fixed, and that's the total number of ways you permitted. Then it becomes the kind of moment I go like, oh yeah, I didn't think of, I can apply that to the So to answer your question, we go deep, which is foundation building. Make sure it's strong. Make sure the math concept is good, and then we go broad, right? Show them all the different type of questions that I over all these years I look through so many exam papers, so many test papers, and I good ones, I collate them all together and I talk about them in class. And of course, eventually, it's also their mathematical skills. Some people, they may think that they have a very good concept, which is true, they can understand very well, and then they come across a lot of questions, very good. But then when they ask them to do, they also cannot do, or they get careless because lack practice. So a lot of these components must come together, and then we say that we prepare our students well.
Okay. I understand. Now, speaking about preparing, right, for students, I think not too long ago, the exam changed into WA, right, weighted assessment. I mean, we understand why, right? Why they changed it, right? Which we do support it, but do you see, from your experience so far, right, do you see any like downside for WA?
Okay. You see, like we always say, it's quite difficult to be a government. No, they cannot please everybody. study, right? So I mean, we can understand MOE's direction, right? And that's to reduce the exam stress. By giving them less exam. I mean, it sounds very logical lah. I mean, give them less exam, they got no exam so where got stress? The WS system is I wouldn't say a new game like it's been around for a few years already, but it's something that students and parents and like us educators have to wake up to a new reality because WS is little test, okay, little test. So depending on school also, like this term one, some school only test one topic. Some schools they test last year's topic because this year haven't teach enough, so they cannot test them more. So and to make things worse, some schools their test is like 30 minutes, so 20 marks. Now this 20 marks sounds like a mini test, which is, I mean, you can understand their reasoning behind, like 20 marks, less stressful for the kids, right? But it's very demoralizing because every 1 mark that the student lost is 5%. So it's like, if this student is like, 75% already, then 1 mark due to carelessness, the A1 become A2. Another mark, the A2 become a B3. So you have students who actually, when I look at the test script, right, he or she understands the thing. Okay lah, here careless, there careless, a few marks gone here and there, but it's just a B3. It doesn't feel good, like the student is not that bad, but the parents may not take it. Yeah, Mr. Ang, why so and so didn't do so well? I mean, true lah, if you look at the grade, B isn't what we are hoping for. To be fair, we put in so much effort, we revise so much, and the time that the students invested coming here and all, we expected good. Good means A, yeah, but we're not saying it. But when I look through and do I call it a post-mortem, like trying to find out the cause of death, like trying to figure out what happened. So it's not that bad, probably careless, but the result shows bad. So I need to explain to the parents and the students as well, because they are quite demoralized, like, they're quite dejected. Like, I know everything, I studied also, but I can't get anyone. So I need to explain to them, this is a new game. Every 1 mark is very painful now. So there's no room for, the margin of error is very low now. There's no room for error. So it's not like last time we have a good 100 marks kind of, full-fledged 1 hour exam, 100 marks or maybe 50 marks, and you have a 1 or 2 questions on the same topic. So yes, you may mess up the first one, but the second one save you, yeah, and you actually show your full potential. Unfortunately, that's not the game that we're in anymore. So I do have students who come back to me and say, Mr. Wow, I wish we have the 100 marks exam now. I said, wow, you are, I don't know, man, you should be the minority, but a lot of the people in the class agree. I said, you all go and petition to MOE lah. I think MOE poor thing, on one hand, they have to please the parents by reducing the exam, and then on the other hand, there's crazy students like yourself who ask for more exams. I mean, yeah, so it's difficult balance, but that's the reality we're in. It's just that we have to, I mean, what can we do, right? We just have to face it, and we try to overcome the difficulty. But then I wanted to use the word we try to game it, but there's really no much gaming it to game it lah. We just have to do our best, continue to do what we have been doing all these years, preparing the students. There'll be times the result come back it's not what quite wanted, but we need to take a closer look at the scripts and really address the problem. So for some people, it's a matter of careless. Like I said, 1, 2 marks here, 1, 2 marks there, easily become a B, and there will be sometimes just simply the exam paper difficult. I mean, simply difficult. The teachers set difficult paper because the teacher probably want to filter out some group of students. The one we can't tell what the teacher's agenda may be. So that is another possibility. And then the other possibility is a mismatch of topics. So mismatch of topic is one possibility as well, that we may be preparing very well for this chapter 1, but then we only started chapter 2, but then the school may have started chapter 2 first. So then they become this slightly mismatch, and therefore the preparation is not as solid as we hope for. And these are all realities that we have to face and we have to manage. So usually what will happen is things iron out as the year progresses along, because they will also have more practice from, I mean, if my students, what I make them do is, of course, we make them go through assessment tests, this is what we have learned now over the past couple of weeks. Okay, come show me what I've done. So mini tests like this, and even now there's no more MIA exam throughout the entire system. There's just no MIA exam, all right, for even JC kids anymore. But some schools, they still conduct it, but they label it as time practice. Yeah, so it's just a full-fledged. They need to have this checkpoint at mid-year. But some school, they really adhere to what the MOE wants them to do, which is just WA. So therefore, two topic here and there, 2 topic here and there. Then the first exam they ever face is the end of year exam. And for some people, they cannot like, I need to be doing a 2-hour paper they never done before. So you can imagine the time management, they totally got no practice. So one of the ways, like I always reassure my parents or my students, and that is like throughout the year it will get better. And of course during mid-year period where we have the holiday to have more time with the students, we'll conduct our own mid-year exam.
All right, okay, so we're moving on to the next question. So the next question is going to be, how does WA systems affect students?
Okay, now this WA system has been around for quite a while, but it's a new direction that's what MOE is trying to do, which is to reduce the exam stress for kids. And therefore, we can understand the direction, why is it actually going this way. However, it comes with a big problem. And that is like, for example, there are a few problems I can think of straight away. And that is number one. For example, some schools, they have their WA to be full marks, it's like 20 marks. So 20 marks, half an hour test. So it tests like maybe 4 questions, maybe 20 marks. And quite poor thing for the kids, because imagine you got 1 mark of careless mistake, 2 marks careless mistake. That's like 2 grades difference, for some people. So it can be quite demoralizing in that sense that, they actually know everything, they study for it, but the A's are not showing up. Yeah, so that can be quite demoralizing in that sense. But that's the game that we're in. So we have the system that we're in right now. So we have to learn to manage and also let the students and the parents understand. And the second problem is that WAs are mini tests. So 1 or 2 topics at one go at one time. So it may turns out giving the students a false sense of security. You see, on one hand, it may demoralize the student because it's a too small a test. On the other hand, it may mislead students into thinking that they are very good because it's a small test. You get me? So because the student may do quite well for these 2 topics, and the next 2 topics, because after all, studying for 2 topics doesn't sound too demanding. But then by the time they go for the final exam, and that's when for the first time, in the whole year, they sit down for 1.5 hour or maybe 2 hours to do a long paper that's like 100 marks, like so many questions, and all the topics combined for the whole year. That's when the true quality of their standard will show up. But then that is when they get the shock of their life as well. And you can imagine the kind of disappointment if, my WA1 was A1, WA2 A1, WA3 also A1. My final exam, I barely passed. It's quite demoralizing for a student to go through that. And the parents must be asking a lot of questions like, what do you do? Why are you studying? You get me? And it's not fully the student's fault in that sense, because it's just got sense of security because of all the little tests. So I mean, these are the kind of system that we're in right now. No more like, mid-year exam having like last time we used to have the mid-year exam like a checkpoint. First half of the year we learned so much. Okay, this is where it stands right now. You barely passed. So are you ready for the end of the year? That's the kind of question that students do some soul searching, parents do some rearrangement of something is not working well. Okay, yeah, and that kind of stuff. We have a check, but nowadays we don't have that kind of check to look back. And the first check is that. And you can imagine if you are Sec 3 going to Sec 4, that's going to be a very nasty shock.
How do you combat this?
How do we combat this? Okay, now we try to prepare our students as best as we can, of course, right? So of course, the kind of practice that we put in, and of course, at the same time, we also don't want the student to have the end of the year shock. So because during the June holiday, that's when they don't go to school that often. We can catch them. So we will conduct our own so-called mid-year exam. Now, to some parents and to some people, exam is a bad word. To us, we don't want to stress our students, but at the same time, we don't want to give them a false sense of security, So we want to make sure that, hey, if you're weak, you're weak. And then we catch it early, And to be fair, not every student that come into my class or in our classes, they join right from the start, you see. So some of them may join in May or may join in April. And that is when we don't know what is their backstory completely until we really have a good sit-down test. And then we realize that, maybe you can do in class, but you can't do with this particular time pressure. So some people, they cannot do well when there's a time pressure because they are not used to it. So we prepare our students by having this kind of simulation, exam simulation, the time pressure, like, hey, you know what, this is only a 2-mark question, you only have that 1.5 minutes to try, okay? And in exam, you cannot be stuck in this 2-mark question for 10 minutes, Yeah. So some of them are not aware. And the first time they face that is their final exam, and that's something we will try to avoid to happen to our students. So there are a lot of components that come in that will help prepare our students for the final exam. But one of them is, of course, this kind of simulation, time pressure simulation.
Okay. So how should students balance WAs with their overall syllabus mastery?
Sorry, one more time?
How should students balance WAs with overall syllabus syllabus mastery?
Okay. So WA give them a snapshot, right? Which is like a snapshot of what you can do currently. And then the next WA will be the next snapshot. Now, the trouble with some students, and in particular, some particular level, for example, we talk about Sec 3, and in specifically, we're talking about AMAth, because AMAth, their chapters can be quite different. So in the beginning of the year, you may be learning quadratic, you may be learning polynomial, and then you go for the WA, you did very well, because that shows a snapshot of, oh, I'm good with this too. Then the next term, you learn other topics like logarithm and maybe binomial expansion, coordinate geometry, and then you have another snapshot. Now, that snapshot may give you a sense that, oh, I can also do these 3 topics quite well, and so on. But when it all come together, that's the big problem, because things that you have done in January, February, you don't keep doing the same thing, you see, because in class, teachers move on, your homework move on due to different topics. End of year exam is a different game because you lump everything together. So in order to prepare for that, we need to have constant kind of tests to test them, not just the current snapshot, but like the overall scheme of things. And that way, they can try to overcome this kind of misleading WA results.
Okay. So we try to wrap it up. Just have a couple more questions. So another parent has asked, so what are some problems that you foresee students having this year?
This year. So I like fortune teller already. Okay. No, not so. Okay, this year versus every other year, the problem more or less the same. It's just that if you're asking in particular this year, the Chinese New Year timing may not be the most favorable, because it was quite early. They haven't warm up, then they have another long break, and then they go for the WA. So in particular this year, the public holiday timing makes the student can't get into gear in a way. They almost get into the gear of studying already, but then they have a long break again. So it makes them a little bit more of inertia to overcome, and therefore parents alike may not see the urgency. They may not see the urgency because it's like, okay, they're still handling well in school, because the school hasn't get the chance to go into top gear yet. And that's when I foresee in the second half of the year, and that's when the pace pick up, and that's when they get a shock. I mean, some of them are already feeling the shock, but now we're in April, and some of the students are still in the la la land, like they're still in the okay. I mean, my school is still doing algebra, still same as beginning of the year, like haven't progressed much. Yeah. So, but when the second half of the year comes in, and that's when they have to complete a certain amount of work for their end of year exam, and that's when they start to, and they will find that they can't cope with the current topic at that point. They cannot remember what was taught in the beginning of the year because the foundation wasn't that strong. So if you ask me specifically for this year, yeah, I think we foresee some of these issues with students going forward. Yeah.
Okay. So we go to the last question, right? So maybe for parents who saw that their child actually struggled with the first term, right? WA1 result come back didn't do that well, right? So what would be your advice for parents?
Of course, my advice to parents, and I talk to quite a lot of parents quite regularly, is that when you identify that there's a problem, you should try to seek help. I mean, some parents have this mentality, let's try one more term. I mean, it's not that this idea is wrong, because after all, we have to give the students some space and time. If they feel that, this is offside, let me try again, I can do it better. But then again, we have to think of the other side of the scale, and that is that if you keep doing the same thing, using the same method, you don't expect a different result.
Yeah.
So I would say that if the student is really working very hard, I mean, there are telltale signs, right? Student working very hard. Students seem to be understanding in school. The homework has no problem. It doesn't run around asking for help for homework. Ask elder brother, ask cousins, no need. But yet WA cannot show result. I think this is one red flag. We need to look at the WA. We need to understand what happened to this kid. But we identify the problem and then start to seek help. And I think that would be my best advice.
Okay, so we've come to the end of our second episode. I think you guys can see that it's a pretty long episode, right? So if you guys enjoy the podcast or have any questions, please comment down below. In the meantime, please do follow us on our socials, on IG, we are on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook as well, which all links will be in the description below. All right, so see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Yes, bye.